What I think they need to do is they need to reincorporate the classic dungeon style from this 3D era that they're talking about, the Ocarina of Time era, and have like 8 to 10 of those as the main storyline progression in the open world.
Video games, video games, video games, video games!
On the Gamer, written by Quentin O'Connor, after Breath of the Wild transformed the Zelda series for good, old school fans are mourning the Ocarina of Time era. So this stuck out to me as something that I wanted to get into, because The Legend of Zelda is my all-time favorite franchise. Breath of the Wild is my favorite game of all time, but I love all the eras. I love the original era. Link to the Past was my favorite game forever until Breath of the Wild. I love the 3D era, Ocarina of Time, Skyward Sword, Twilight Princess. What am I forgetting? Wind Waker. I love all those games too. So I've loved all three eras, if you want to break it down that way. The original 2D era, the 3D era, and then like the open world era. That's what I would call them. I've loved them all. So I'm interested to see where they're getting this information from and what the fans are saying about this. You think this is bullshit other than people wanting traditional dungeons, but graphics and look shouldn't go back. Well, let's see what they say. In the wake of the twin financial titans that are Breath of the Wild and its 6 years later sequel, Nintendo has made the executive decision never to look back. Series producer Eiji Onuma, I never know how to pronounce his name right, I feel so bad, is all in on the open world formula. The semi-linear 3D Zelda approach, invented in Ocarina of Time and tweaked to great effect with 4 more games, may never return. Oh yeah, 4 more, I forgot Majora's Mask. While the 2D Zelda entries have maintained that classical identity, three-dimensional mainline projects have largely abandoned the approach, and fans are turning up in droves to lament the loss of identity and to discuss which games from other series, if any, can scratch that Ocarina forged itch. Well, I disagree with the first line. While the 2D Zelda entries have maintained that classical identity, there's only been 2 recently, and one of them was a remake. It was a faithful remake, Link's Awakening. And the second one, the Zelda game, which I loved, was completely different. I didn't get any classical feel with it. I mean, obviously some of the areas were taken from Link to the Past. You get that, but yeah, and okay, the perspective. But I didn't really feel like I'm playing a classic Zelda game when I was playing, yeah, what the hell was it called? It was like a brand new feeling experience for me. Wisdom something, right? What the hell was it called? Just remake Ocarina and Majora, but with the Breath of the Wild look. Problem solved. That would be interesting. Echoes of Wisdom, thank you. Because they've already remade both of those games. Would this be the first games that get remade a second time? Because they were both remade on the 3DS. So if they remake those again, that would be interesting. And with the Breath of the Wild look, that would be cool. That would be very cool. Does Ocarina of Time need a remake? Would you want a remake of that or a new game in that style? And if it's up to me, I would want a new game in this style. Because I can play the original game and have as much fun with it as I did back then. And even the 3DS remake I like. So me personally, I would like a new game in that style if they were going to do this, instead of remaking that one again. So on the True Zelda Reddit, now I think sometimes you have to take these Reddit threads with a grain of salt, and we'll read this, but just going into this, because a lot of the times this is your diehard niche audience. They are going to play no matter what, and they have specific tastes that are in like the bubble, and so they don't represent the millions and millions and millions and millions of people necessarily that play Zelda games. So a lot of times you got to take this with a grain of salt. So if this entire article is based on what some people said on Reddit, who knows? So on this Reddit thread, True Zelda, A thread's presently popping off filled with fans who are holding vigils for the more in-depth dungeons and directly presented stories seen in Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, and Skyward Sword. A common theme in the discussion centers on a lack of replacements and the Ocarina of Time style from other studios who still treasure that design philosophy enough to hold the torch. So they're saying there's not even like any spiritual successor games that they can play that makes them feel like that game, and they want more games like that. By throwing most known Zelda elements out the window with the Wild Era games, all right, stop it right there. Wild Era? No. I hate it. Why do people gotta name these things so cringe? Why would you even call it the Wild Area? Because the game's called Breath of the Wild. Call it the Open World Era if you're gonna call it anything, or the Switch Era. Wild Area is stupid. Man, this stuff annoys me. All right, moving on. The franchise has lost an identity and style of game that was unique to it, the thread's creator begins. Folks quickly line up to concur. Yeah, sadly, it's in the domain of 2D games, now seeing as everything has gone open world. Reminiscence is the name of the game here. Classic 3D Zelda is my favorite game type, says Nintendo Man Dan. I'm with you 100%. No one else makes games like that, not even close. Now, I have said, although Breath of the Wild is my all-time favorite game, and I love Tears of the Kingdom, there's certain things I'm not going to get into now that why Breath of the Wild I like over that one, but I have always said the weakest part of those games are the main 4 storyline dungeons, especially in Breath of the Wild. The Divine Beasts, it's the weakest part of the game, and in Tears of the Kingdom, I think it's the same thing. The temples, the weakest part of the game, right? The 4 main temples in the areas. I've been saying, and I'm probably not the only one, but you guys have heard me say this. I think moving forward, where do you go with Zelda from here? I don't think you throw this you get rid of the open world at all, because I don't, in my opinion, I mean, obviously there's other games in the conversation, Red Dead Redemption, GTA, Elden Ring, that have very good open worlds, but in my opinion, they did it the best with Breath of the Wild, the open world, and I don't think you can go away from that. But what I think they need to do is they need to reincorporate the classic dungeon style from this 3D era that they're talking about, the Ocarina of Time era, and have like 8 to 10 of those as the main storyline progression in the open world. So instead of having 4 basic, not very good main dungeons, keep everything however they want to do with the shrines, all that, keep all that stuff the same, but add in giant classic dungeons for the main story into the open world and combine both of them. I think that is the way to go, and I think that would appease all the fans, honestly, which you can never do with anything. You can't appease everybody, but I think that would do it here, except for the people that only want the 2D games. Anuma had done this interview a couple years ago with IGN that they quote here, and this is where it upset a lot of the fans. It's interesting when I hear people say that they prefer the old entries, because I am wondering, why do you want to go back to a type of game where you're more limited or more restricted in the types of things or ways you can play? But I do understand that desire that we have for nostalgia, and so I can also understand it from that aspect. And I think this is a perfect way to see the difference between the people that make the games and the people that play the games. Because when they're making the game, and we've seen this with Final Fantasy VII, we've talked a lot about on this channel, that the developers have talked about, we're trying to do the things that we wanted to do back then, but we couldn't. So when they're making these old Zelda games, they're probably sitting there going, man, I want to do this. I wish we could do this. I wish we could do that. I wish we could do that. And now they can. So in their minds, it's like, why would you want to go back to these games when we couldn't do all these other things? So I understand that from his perspective. But from a player, that's not what it's about. It's sitting down and, is this game fun? It's sitting down and, oh my god, how amazing is this world? How creative is this dungeon? How much do I have to think to do this? How great is this music, the town? I love the feeling of being in this world. While for them, it's like, well, you couldn't do all this and that. Why do you want to go back to that? But for a lot of the players, it's like, because that was fun. For whatever reason it is, whether I like being put on a path, I like the story being more linear, because you can tell more of a story with a linear story than you can with an open world. Or I like having to sit for hours in these dungeons and figure it out. or that I need to get this item before I can move on. So there's a lot of things that those games did well because of their limitations, which made them great for the players, where the developers are like, well, we had to do that because we couldn't do these other things, but those things worked. So I think this is a perfect example, looking at it differently from a developer's perspective and from a player's perspective. Skyward Sword did it really clever. Just go even get into the dungeons was like just get into the dungeons was like a mini dungeon. Yeah, a lot of people complain about Skyward Sword only having like 3 main areas or whatever. That never bothered me. It was just a different experience. You know, I really like Skyward Sword. It comes down to the items. That's what people miss. The Metroidvania aspect of needing new items to get to new areas. Yeah. That always felt good. It was always like a path. You know, even in the original, the old school games, having to get the item in the dungeon to even beat the boss sometimes. So yeah, I think people miss that. So that's why I think as amazing as the open world and Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom and all that stuff is, yeah, I completely understand why would you want to go backwards from that. But what you do is you go forwards by bringing back stuff from the past and putting it into this new open world. Imagine going into a giant open world, because you know it's going to be even bigger on the next one, on the Switch too, right? I mean, this one is a Wii U game, the original one. So you imagine this even bigger world, and you go out there and you get the feeling, hopefully, that you did in Breath of the Wild when you see this. And you're like, I can go everywhere that I can see. But knowing that in that world there are giant dungeons with the huge maps, and you need all the keys, and you gotta figure out the puzzles, and you have to find the item in the dungeon to even progress or to get to the boss, and you need the big key, all that stuff in this world. That would be freaking amazing, man. And I hope that's where they go, because I completely understand not wanting to go backwards, but sometimes that makes you go forwards by bringing back the things that people love and making them feel those things in a new way.